There we are. So welcome everybody to the launch event for our upcoming community archaeology project at the Hafod-Morfa Copperworks. This has been made possible by the support of the National Lottery Heritage Fund, Swansea University and Swansea Council. We really hope that this session will give you all of the information that you need to prepare to get involved. But firstly, my colleague Libby is going to give you a whirlwind tour of the history of the Copperworks and some recent archaeological work that we've undertaken on site. Hopefully it will leave you excited to get going in a fortnight's time. We will then follow that with a bit of practical information about the project and finish up with a chance for you to ask any questions that you've got. So let's get going. I'll hand over to you, Libby.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Abby. I'm very pleased to be here at the launch event for our 2021 Copperworks Discovery Project. And I thought by way of an introduction to the event, I'd give you a quick introduction to the history of the Copperworks, give you a quick rundown of all of the projects we've been involved in over the last couple of years, and then we'll have a little look at our excavation site for a fortnight's time as well, in preparation for you to get thinking about things. So let me share my screen and hopefully we'll have no problems there. Can everybody see recent investigations at the Hafod-Morfa Copperworks? Excellent. Right, so in the 18th century, copper came to the lower Swansea Valley. Before that, it was a green and pleasant land, and in the 18th century, it started to become the noisy and dirty hub of a global copper industry. At its peak in the mid-19th century, the lower Swansea Valley accounted for 90% of the world's copper production. And at this time, the Hafod-Morfa Copperworks were the largest copperworks in the world, employing over 1,000 people. But why Swansea, you may ask? As you might expect, the main reason initially was coal. The Swansea Copperworks had a plentiful supply of coal, which was brought directly to the works, initially by tram, and by the end of the 18th century by canal. In fact, eventually, every copperworks had its own canal dock for this very purpose. What's more, Swansea had the right types of coal, then these mixed together in the right quantities were perfect for copper smelting. The other important thing, though, is shipping. The River Towy was navigable by seafaring ships, and this meant that they could sail right up to the riverside docks of each copperworks. It meant that copper ore could be imported from places like Cornwall and North Wales initially, and as far as South America and Australia at its peak. But also, of course, the ships went the other way, and the docks meant that the manufactured goods could be shipped back down the river to reach their global market. I just wanted to touch very quickly on the Welsh process. And the reason for this is because close proximity to coal only really became a factor following the introduction of the reverberatory furnace to copper smelting. Now, the reverberatory furnace kept the coal and the fire in a firebox, and that kept it separate from the copper ore. And what happened is the heat from the fire would reverberate from the walls and the arched roof of the furnace, meaning that the copper would get smelted without getting contaminated. And what this meant for the lower Swansea Valley was that it became cheaper to ship the ore to the coal rather than the coal to the ore. The copperworks here in Swansea refined this method of smelting to such an extent that it became known as the Welsh process. So I just wanted to mention reverberatory furnaces because we do talk about them a lot with the Hafod site, and it's helpful to know what that's all about. So the Hafod Copperworks was established in 1808 by John Vivian, who was a Cornish entrepreneur. He was originally a copper agent in Cornwall for the Cheadle Brass and Wire Company, before he became the manager of their new copperworks, which was based in Penclouth. However, it wasn't long before he decided to strike out on his own, and he established the Hafod Copperworks on a marshy spot on the west banks of the River Towy, which you can see in the plan there. Several copperworks were there already in operation, so this was the ideal site to get started. He initially began smelting, but by 1819 he'd begun rolling copper too. Meanwhile, in 1828, on the neighbouring plot, Williams Foster and Company, another Cornish company, had opened the Morfa Works for copper rolling, really initially as a satellite site to the nearby Rose Works, which they also owned. Copper ingots from the Rose Works would be brought to Morfa for rolling. However, in 1834, the new Morfa Works were constructed on the same site. We don't have any maps of this early layout, but the financial accounts for the construction, which are held by the Richard Burton Archives and are excellent, tell us there were at least 6 Llanelli patent calcining furnaces on the site. Regarding the layout of the Hafod-Works, here is a beautiful 1822 estate map showing the location and layout of the Hafod-Works. And you can see that it's directly opposite the Middlebank Works and surrounded by the White Rock Works and the Upper Bank Works too. The plan to the right is taken from Stephen Hughes' Copperopolis book, which is just fantastic. And in this plan, he takes historic plans and drawings and sources, and he's mapped the different phases of the copperworks, starting with the original smelting building, which was known as the Longhouse, and he shows subsequent phases of development added on. The important point here is that each small square on the plan is a reverberatory furnace, and as you can see, there were a lot of them. And you can also see the Hafod rolling mills in the bottom right corner of the plan, and those are important, and we'll come back to those later. By the mid-19th century, the Hafod Copperworks had already run out of room. This level of growth was spurred by the sale of copper and yellow metal goods at home and overseas, and the sheathing of seafaring ships with copper bottoms to protect their timber hulls. You can see in the top photo the huge Hafod slag tip. And that photo is fantastic because it shows that there was so little room on the site that they had to build an acid works on the very top of the tip, which I think you can just see there. At about the same time, the copper works of the Swansea Valley began to diversify. Both the Hafod and Morfa Works were making yellow metal, silver. Records tell us that Hafod Works were making gold too. And when the railways came along, Hafod and Morfa Works were well placed with their rolling mills to make boiler parts for steam engines. It's worth mentioning too that they also sold their byproducts, and examples of this include fertiliser, copper slag blocks, which you can see if you know what you're looking for all over Swansea, and Vivian black ash bricks as well. The Hafod and Morfa Copperworks stopped smelting in 1921, and from that point on they focused on refining ore, as well as some of these other side projects that I've mentioned. At this point they were the last copperworks to be smelting still. The Hafod and Morfa Works were amalgamated in 1924 when it became British Copper Manufacturers, and the site was subsequently operated by Yorkshire Imperial Metals until it closed in 1980. And when it did, it was the last operating copperworks in Swansea. And this is what was left behind. As we have already touched on the copper smelting process, this process involved many stages and produced a huge amount of waste in the form of slag. Here in the picture, you can see the Morfa tip in the 1940s. It completely dominates the landscape, and these tips could be found up and down the valley. So between the 1960s and the 80s, a huge clearance programme was undertaken. It involved the demolition of the majority of copperworks buildings and the levelling of the tips. And as a result of this process, there is actually very little left of Swansea copper industry. However, at the Hafod-Morfa Copperworks, we do have some standing structures. There are at least 15 significant structures on the site in varying conditions. The The ones that you probably would recognise are the ones that are involved in the redevelopment of the Penderyn distillery. And that includes the rolling mill, which is the north-south aligned long building at the top there. And that's used as the museum stores currently, but it will become partly part of the barrel store for the Penderyn project. The laboratory building, you can see in the bottom left corner of that red square, and the Morfa powerhouse, which later became the Yorkshire Imperial Metals Canteen. Towards the river then, we have got the Musgrave Engine House, which contains the Musgrave Engine and Rolls, which are a scheduled monument. And neighbouring that are the Vivian Engine House and Chimney. And then there's several other less well-known sites that are all important and very worth going to see if you get the chance, but I'm not going to talk about those now. Here you can see images of the Hafod-Morfa Copperworks as we found it when we started our large excavations there a couple of years ago. As you can see, there's very little buildings remaining, and the majority of the Copperworks site has been replaced now by the Park and Ride car park. You can see in the bottom right picture that the standing buildings that do survive are in a pretty derelict state. However, I'm pleased now that they are under a process of renovation. So that's the end of my talk about the history of the Copperworks site. So now I will go on and tell you a little bit about the projects that we've been involved in over the last couple of years. The first one of these was our first Copperworks Discovery Project. That was in 2018, and it was hugely successful and enjoyable for the 80 participants that were involved. This involved a series of public talks by leading experts on the copper industry and historic buildings, and a number of site tours showing the historic buildings and talking about their development. The project also involved workshops on how to carry out archaeological research and the best websites that you can access online to get to know the site. And we also showed participants how to carry out building surveys out on the ground, both in the traditional way with pencil and paper and digitally through photogrammetry and 3D modelling. Okay, on to the next project, trenching at the Hafod-Morfa Copperworks. We were asked by Swansea Council to undertake some trenching across the site to try and get an understanding of the extent and the depth and the survival of Copperworks features on the site. So we undertook a total of 12 trenches in 3 separate areas, and I will just very briefly work you through those now. The first area, trenches 1 to 3, were based on the powerhouse building, that is the Hafod Powerhouse building, which is just south of the Morfa Powerhouse building, which is currently undergoing renovation. The trenches we put in this location came down onto Archaeology within 10 centimetres of digging. They were very shallow indeed, and there we came across in situ quarry tiled floors, concrete structures, and also a large brick flue that you can see in the pictures there, running north-south through the site. So very interesting and busy area there. In contrast, trenches 5 to 9 were targeted on where we thought that the longhouse, the original smelting house, would be located. Now, these trenches were very deep. The archaeology wasn't found until at least 2 metres deep, but it was there when we found it at that depth, including a number of reverberatory furnaces that are thought to be associated with that longhouse. And it was excellent to see those footings surviving there. The final area of the trenching was trenches 10 to 12. Again, these are particularly interesting for you guys because they relate to the area that we're going to be looking at for our community excavation. Again, very shallow and lots of features coming up. We found that the portion of the rolling mill sheds building that we uncovered, the concrete floor was intact. There were manholes in it, and there were other structures that we didn't really get a chance to investigate particularly well within these trenches. So really looking forward to finding out what we can find when we all get together in a couple of weeks' time. The next project that we were involved in was a bit different for us. Swansea Council had found a huge number of timber design patterns in the basement of the Morfa powerhouse, which was about to undergo renovation. So before that building work started, they were keen to get these timber patterns recorded and understood before that work took place. They were in a horrible condition. It was waterlogged in there. It was very dark, and these wooden objects were in very bad condition. It took a lot of sifting too, because as well as the timber patterns, there were an awful lot of rubble and wood and all sorts of things in there. However, once we processed them all, we had a total of 97 objects, including 39 design patterns. All of these were fully recorded archaeologically, and some of the best examples were recorded via 3D modelling. I believe that some of those models are available to see on our website if you check out our blog. What was a surprise for us was that once we'd sifted through all of these timber patterns, we got to see a lovely brick-lined floor of the powerhouse basement as well. And there you can see my colleague Ross undertaking 3D photogrammetric modelling in the basement there. It was a fun project. The next project was just a quick archaeological watching brief at the Vivian engine house. We were asked just to go along and watch whilst all the rubble and debris was being taken out of the Vivian engine house before its renovation recently. And we didn't expect to find much. And we didn't initially, it was all just debris, but it seemed that the wheel pit had at some point been capped with concrete slabs, probably when the metalwork was being taken out during its decommissioning. And what we found was that beneath that slab, there were a huge number of objects that had been just thrown in, but I'm not going to go through them all now because there were tons, but here are a couple of examples. We found a copper hammered bowl in there, and also a fully intact copper wooden spanner board, which was a big surprise because you don't get the size of it in these pictures, but it was about 1.5 by 3 meters. So to find it intact in the wheel pit of that engine house was quite remarkable, really. It's exciting. The next slide begins the information about the Penderyn whiskey excavations that we did, which was the largest excavation that we've done on the site so far. The idea of the excavation was to understand and record the archaeological features in the footprint of the new Penderyn development. Here is an image of what that development will look like. Penderyn are going to be taking on the powerhouse building, as I think I've said, with a new visitor centre and a walkway to the rolling mill, which will be a barrel store. And it's really fantastic to see these sites brought back to life and to become public realm in the near future. This slide shows you that despite the fact that we were only dealing with a sliver of the Copperworks site, you can see that we found a lot of information. It was a very busy site. Some of it was very deep and on top of each other. And we've managed to break it down into 4 main phases, which I'm going to run through with you now quickly. The first phase was the earliest phase and was dated to the early mid-19th century. So really when the Morfa Copperworks site was first constructed. The first feature that we found was remains of a pond, which we don't know very much about, but it is on the first edition Ordnance Survey map as a blue area. So we knew it was there, but we weren't really expecting to find anything, but we did find a very thick puddling clay base of a pond there. And the excavation, which was just down the western edge of the powerhouse building, showed us that the that it went underneath the powerhouse building. So it was constructed beforehand, and the powerhouse was built afterwards. The second interesting early find that we had was this enormous culvert. We didn't know it was there. It isn't on any plans. I think it frightened Reese when he found it. What's interesting about it is that the interior doesn't seem to have any residues of sulfur or other hot gas residues that you'd expect from a flue. So, and it's probably too big for drainage. So we think that it could possibly be a walkway towards the rolling mill in that early phase of the site. The other thing to mention was that we found the cast house walls intact and the cast house floor. The story, of course, is that everything was demolished. However, this building, obviously standing up to 2 stories high, it was completely filled before the excavation started with demolition debris and soil and all sorts. So we were very surprised to get down to this depth and find the floor intact. Cut into the cast house floor were several earlier furnaces, which I will tell you about in a second. The last feature relating to the first phase of, so the mid 19th century phase of the works, was this massive revetment wall. It was associated with a platform of limestone to the west. And this wall was at least 2 meters deep, and we did catch a glimpse of timber lining at the base of it. So current thinking on this is that the wall represents the side of a wharf or the side of the pond that I've already mentioned, and perhaps that boats were used on this pond to take coal from the coaling platform to the west to the rest of the works. Right, on to phase 2 then, the mid to late 19th century. In the excavations of this phase, we excavated one whole reverberatory furnace chimney, which I'll show you a photo of in a minute. But from that, and from historic photos, we know that there should be 4 chimneys in this area, and we caught enough glimpses of some other chimneys to be able to model where the others might be, and you can see those in this plan in sort of beige colour. Here is the photo of the furnace we excavated, and this was beneath the later 20th century floor that we found in that cast house. What was really interesting about it is that most of it was filled with brick rubble from the demolition of the chimney, but there were basal deposits at the bottom, which we tested and found there to be high levels of copper and zinc residues that are about right for what you'd find for yellow metal smelting. Now, yellow metal came along in the 1840s, I think. It was invented by George Frederick Muntz, and it was a copper alloy that was about 60% copper and 40% zinc. And this alloy was very popular because it was found to be stronger than copper for cladding the hulls of timber ships, for replacing that copper sheathing into yellow metal sheathing, because it was stronger, but it still had those microbial properties that copper had. Also in this phase, we found the eastern gable wall of the original laboratory building of the Morfa Copperworks. Initially, we didn't know what this building was, although we could see it on photographs from the 1920s, as you can see it there just below the silver stack chimney. However, we found a map in the Richard Burton archives dated to 1894 that labelled it as a laboratory. So that was great to find, and that theory was confirmed by the large number of copper test tubes, fragments of demijohns in the demolition rubble of this building. It was backed up further by the finding of hundreds of tiny little assaying cupels. I have one here just to show you. We found hundreds of these things just in the rubble around the building. And these would have been used in the assaying process by the chemists in the laboratory there. Over to the third phase then, which is dated to the early to mid 20th century. This is our most visually pleasing find. It is a 1920s bathhouse, which we found completely intact. We knew that it was there because we'd found it on some trial excavations that we'd already done there, but we did not expect it to be intact. And we certainly didn't expect it to have 12 ceramic shower trays, urinals and toilets. So we were really happy with this find, and we did a fantastic 3D model of it, which I believe you can see on our blog if you are interested. Moving on then to our phase 4, which was the mid to late 20th century. And the first feature here was this enormous filtration system, which was up on the upper terrace of the Copperworks next to the Weybridge office and butting on to the canal itself. And what this filtration system would have done is taken water, dirty water from the canal, and filtered it through a series of grills until it was clean enough to be taken to the works. So it was a very substantial feature to find, and in remarkably good condition. We also found against the gable wall of the rolling mill a long forgotten memorial garden to servicemen and civilians from the Hafod-Morfa Copperworks who died in World War II. You can see the plinths around the floor making a hexagon shape, and also there was a plinth against the wall, which was really beautiful. I have Tom Henderson from the Friends group to thank for letting us know that there is a memorial stone to the Landor works currently in the Landor Social Club, which we believe possibly would have been situated in this position originally. Next, we came across this World War II air raid shelter, which we weren't expecting, but having looked at plans afterwards, I'll show you a plan in a minute. There are several of these that were on the Morfa works. This one was found again in remarkably good condition with its cast concrete walls and the cast house brick wall behind it. Here's that plan I mentioned. Having counted the air raid shelters marked on this plan, there were 12 in total at the Morfa works alone. And obviously the reason for this is because the Luftwaffe were targeting industrial sites like this during the war. So they were needed for the protection of the workers. The last thing to mention were these bizarre concrete machine bases that we found on the upper level of the cast house floor, so the latest cast house floor. And we didn't know really what these were for at all, other than they must have taken large machines. However, just this week, we've come across some archive photographs in the West Glamorgan archives that showed that some large lathing machines were situated in this building in the 1950s. So a little bit more work to do on that, but I think probably the machine bases we found there are related to these large lathing machines. So I'll let you know when I know more about that. So that brings us to the end of the talk about our previous projects. And now I will just show you a couple of things relating to our excavation that we're going to be doing in a couple of weeks. So I'm really looking forward to this. Welcome all. Let's have a look at our excavation site. So you can see from the map here that our excavation site is just to the south of the Musgrave engine house. The Musgrave engine house is a scheduled monument, so we won't be right in that site, but we will be outside of the curtilage there. So just to let you know then, the earliest rolling mills there were started in 1819, and the National Museums Wales have a fantastic plan of the first Hafod rolling mill that you can see there in the top right corner. The Neath Abbi Ironworks Archives also has a fantastic number of plans and diagrams of both the engine house and the beam engine itself. And I believe that the Friends of the Neath Abbey Ironworks have recently completed a fantastic digital reconstruction of the #1 engine, so that is well worth having a look at. You can see in the plan, just at the bottom right hand corner here, is that plan again, and that there were lots of furnaces in this area as well. So the #1 rolling mill was renovated and extended in 1910 with the installation of the Musgrave engine, which was a 600 horsepower single cylinder uniflow steam engine. I hope I've got that right. The Musgrave engine and rolls are scheduled monuments now because, incredibly, the Musgrave engine at Hafod is the earliest known surviving example in the world. And the Musgrave engine, the wheel, the gearbox, and some of the rolling mills are still in situ today. The engine house, the Musgrave engine house, and the neighbouring Vivian engine house have recently been renovated. And also the Friends of Morfa Copperworks have done a great job fixing up the Musgrave engine house gantry crane as well. So I'm telling you all this because the rolling mills are outside in the elements today, but they originally had huge factory sheds over them, as you can see in the bottom right hand corner of the 1926 plan that I've included there. This 1939 blueprint plan held by the National Museums of Wales offers a much better detail of the internal arrangement of the rolling mills and furnaces. Now, rolling mills worked by passing copper or yellow metal slabs through them over and over again until they were reduced to thin sheets. The top two photos show how they work, and look at the size of that rolling mill shed building. It's absolutely enormous. And the bottom photo shows you the same building, but from the loco shed, and it shows how there's rail tracks running straight through the end of the building. So we know from our previous trenches that the rolling mill floor is intact where we saw it in those trenches, but we don't really know whether any of the other features, such as the rails or the furnaces or anything else, survives, and we don't know if there's anything surviving underneath the 20th century remains. So I'm really looking forward to our excavation. Hopefully we will have some discoveries and we can find out some more things about this area of the site. That's the end of my talk, so I'm going to end the slideshow.
Thank you, Libby. That was really interesting. I think it really underlines why we are excavating where we are, and how exciting it will be to have some members of the community getting their hands dirty on the site with us, and really getting involved with this really important part of not only our national heritage, but also it's internationally important. So I'm going to chat just a little bit now about the more practical side of the dig, maybe answer some questions that you've got about volunteering and all of that that side of things. I'm going to share my screen a minute and just show you a little bit about where we're going to be, because I'm sure many of you are aware of the site, and you've been involved with a lot of the projects that have been ongoing over the years, but some of you will be less familiar. So you will have absolutely no idea whereabouts it is. It's in Swansea, quite central, but I will share this map with you. Hold on a second. Right, I will share a map of the location, but I will also share this with you via email as well. So can everyone see this picture here? Yes. I can't actually see it, but yeah, so basically on your left you can see where the Copperworks is in Swansea. Okay, so the Liberty football stadium is to the north of the Copperworks site. And then we've got the Landor Park and Ride, okay? And when you're coming in, if you're traveling in by car, then you're going to want not to park at the Landor Park and Ride, but you're going to want to take a left, and there's a really large gravelled area which you can see here on the right hand side, and that is free parking for all of you, so take advantage of that. And then you can see our site at the bottom of the bottom of the right hand image there, okay? And it is a little walk down a pathway along by the river, just south of the Musgrave and Vivian engine houses. Like I said, I will share this this map with you so that you can all remind yourselves, but it is really easy to find on Google Maps as well, and very accessible via public transport. So I believe there's a bus route, well, there's a number of bus routes that pass the football stadium, and it is a short walk. There are pedestrian crossings across the bypass, and obviously you've got the park and ride there, so it's a pretty accessible site. Now I would like to share, there we are, right. So this would be our site. So you can just see to the top of our picture there, that's where we're going to be excavating. So you've got the Vivian, the Musgrave engine houses just down there, and the very derelict looking site just to the north of in this picture is the area that we're going to be excavating here. And I will show you why, and Libby really touched on that anyway. Why it's so important is that you see this red perimeter is where we're going to be excavating, and this is a 1951 ICI Metals plan of the Hafod-Morfa Copperworks. And these little blue lines here are when we trenched in 2018, and it directly overlies the rolling mill of the Hafod-Works. So we're expecting to find absolutely loads of archaeology when we hit that site in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm going to exit my screen share now, right? So now that that's done with, a little bit more information. So it's going to run for 5 days from the 8th of November, Monday the 8th of November, through to Friday the 12th. Each day is going to be split into 2 sessions for volunteers. So you've got the morning session running from 10 until 12:30. And then you've got the afternoon session, which will run from 1 o'clock until 3:30, with a little space for lunch in there. So if you're in all day, then you'll have time to stop for food. Or by all means, you know, you can take a break whenever you need to. So I will be sending you all forms if you're interested in getting involved, and you can let us know when, if and when you would like to, when it's convenient for you to participate. There is no need to have any experience. It is all about getting involved with local heritage and learning a bit more about archaeology, maybe picking up some skills, some employability skills. Maybe you're thinking of a new career. We can offer you lots of different activities, things. Some of it might be quite physical. You may not want to get involved in, digging trenches, but you might be more interested in photography, or maybe some recording skills. We draw plans of all of our trenches. We take sections. We like to record it as minutely as possible so we can really understand what's going on, and we can look back and we've got a full record. So there's lots of skills for you to pick up, and lots of opportunity to have fun. You don't need to bring anything with you. We will provide all of the tools, but really important to wear some sturdy footwear. So preferably steel toe caps, but if you don't have them, please don't worry. Some wellies or good boots, that will suffice. And also just bear in mind we're outside, and it could be raining, it could be cold, it could be both. So wear layers. We like to wear layers. we layer ourselves up in the morning, and then as the day goes on, we're shedding layers, and that tends to be the best way forward. And yeah, really, like I said, don't worry about bringing anything with you other than making sure that you're prepared. Bring food, bring water. We will be providing helmets. We will have a machine on site. When being that it is a commercial site in general, when you've got machines, obviously you need to wear a hard hat. You also need to wear a high vis vest, so we know where you are at all times. There also, because of the nature of it being a former metalworking site, the ground is contaminated. So although it's not compulsory for you to wear it, we will be providing PPE for all of you. So PPE in the form of masks. We're all really used to wearing masks now, so that's not really too big of an issue. We've got goggles. That's mainly to protect against any projectiles. Sometimes if a digger hit something, you can get things flying about. But also we have some very swanky looking coveralls, which again, like I said, are not compulsory, but to protect yourself, from any contaminants getting on your clothes or on your skin. We've got these lovely sort of head to toe coveralls that you're welcome to don during the day, and keep you nice and cozy as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it for PPE. And obviously we've got the boring stuff. We'll have to induct you all when you're first on the site. Make sure you're just across all sort of health and safety protocols, COVID-19, mitigation. We will be providing everybody with dry shelter. So there will be a welfare unit there. There's going to be toilets. Obviously, like I said, opportunities for you to stop and have a break and all of that. So yeah, that's really about it. Like I said, I'll be sending short forms out to people who are interested, so you can give us a few details and also availability. I am really hoping to get, because I know that some people might need to take time off of work, so I'm really hoping to put together a proper schedule for volunteers by the end of Friday. So what I'd really like is, if I send out these forms, if everyone could try and get back to me with their completed form by 10 o'clock on Friday. That gives me the rest of the day to have a headache and try and work out where to fit everybody in. But yeah, that's about it really. And yeah, if I'll open up the floor now. If anyone would like to ask any questions, anything that we haven't covered, then please feel free to ask. You can either just turn your mic off and ask a question, or pop it in the chat, and I will answer as best I can. So opening the floor if anyone has any questions.
Hi, Abby.
Oh, hi, Julie.
Hi. I think you pretty much covered everything. Yeah, I'm looking forward to joining in and doing my bit.
Oh, great. That's really good to hear, Julie. Thank you.
Are we committed to do every day, or can we just come whenever we can come?
There we are. There we are. You've already asked a question that I didn't cover. Yeah, you are welcome to attend whenever's convenient for you, as long as we obviously agree that beforehand. So when I send out the forms, each day is split into 2 sessions. So you've got the morning session, the afternoon. If you just want to come along for a couple of hours, pop down for that session. If you want to attend the whole week, then pop yourself down. The only thing we can't guarantee is, because there's quite a lot of people involved, it may not be that we can offer the whole week to everyone, but we'll do our best to try and and accommodate people as best we can.
Okay, thank you for that.
That's okay. So do we have any other questions, or have we pretty much covered everything? Obviously I'm on email, so please feel free to email me if you have any questions that you'd rather ask in private. Also, something that I did forget to mention is making adjustments. So we are fully inclusive on this project, and we want to try and include everyone of every ability as much as we can. So if you have anything that you feel might limit you, or any way that we can make adjustments just to make the experience a little bit more, a little bit easier for you, then please do let me know. Oh, Peter, I can see you've raised your hand. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah. At what depth do you expect to find remains, and have you done geophys before?
So the depth of remains, I think from when we did the 2018 excavations, were quite shallow. So we're talking about 0.3 to 0.4 of a metre down. So we're not going to have to go far before we hit archaeology. With regards to geophys, Libby, do you know if any geophys has been done in that area?
No, I don't think geophys has been done in that area. I think that Time team tried to do a bit when they were over in the Longhouse all those years ago. But I think there was so much metal in the ground that there was just so much noise that nothing was distinguishable, really, from what I remember, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I was just hoping to find out how close to the Musgrave engine fence you were going to dig.
Oh, that's another good question. Libby, do you know how close we're going to be?
Hi, Tom. No is the answer at the moment, although we are in consultation with CADU, so they know that this excavation is going on, and obviously they will advise any specific curtilage that should be added onto the fence that's already there. So I can let you know the answer to that question, Tom.
Oh, there we are. Excellent. Because I shared that drawing we found in Bolton with Alex a while ago now, so I'm kind of curious to find out whether you're still going to sort of pursue some of those remnants we might find down there.
Oh, well, that's certainly an interesting research question to pursue. So I will have to find out exactly where that location is, and perhaps we can target that.
Yeah, okay, because between that and a couple of other drawings we've got, and spurred on by some of the excellent work that Peter and Chris Jones-Jenkins did from Neath Abbi Ironworks. My suspicion is that there might be, you might find the ash pits of the original 1818 engine somewhere in that same spot. So potentially we could be digging a couple of meters down, I guess, but
yep,
yeah,
definitely, potentially.
It's very interesting either way.
I mean, the nature of the community dig is that you guys get to have input into where the trenches go in the first place. So if that's something that you'd like to pursue, then we can definitely look at those maps, think where the best place to put the trench would be, and then go for it. Health and safety permitting, obviously.
I'm going to jump straight into the deepest hole. I'm well keen. Just give me a pick and I'll be away.
Great, we're looking forward to that, definitely.
Does anyone else have any questions before we wind it up for the evening?
Yes, please.
Hi, Arian.
My interest is peripheral. I didn't want to butt in because you had particular questions to ask about the dig. But I'm from the Welsh Place Name Society, so it's a sort of linguistic archaeology, if you like. And what we'd like to do is to link with you, because we've got a national project at the moment, Heritage Lottery project. So we think there's a lot of scope there. And I live in Anglesey, not far from Mynydd Paris, which produced copper ore for the Hafod. But so I got a general interest as well. But perhaps we can talk about that some other time.
Certainly, that definitely sounds really
interesting.
Very interesting. And Reese, I think you had involvement, didn't you, recently with a place name project. So certainly something that we can chat about. Thank you, Rian.
I think Galaxy Tab A has a question.
Oh yeah, I can see a hand up, but I can't see the name. Galaxy Tab. Somebody, yes, somebody with a hand up. If you unmute yourself.
I think you can unmute her as a host.
Oh, ask to unmute. I've clicked on ask to unmute. Let's see. Oh no.
Or you could type your question if you want.
Yeah, you can type your question into the chat if you're having.
We can hear you, Reese.
Unmuting yourself. Anyway, just whilst you might be typing your question, is there anyone else who has a query? We're really excited. We're all really excited to get started on this in 2 weeks' time. So it's great to see so many people who have a genuine interest in the local heritage of the area and just getting stuck in as well. Oh, I'm so sorry. I think user with the Galaxy Tab, have you managed to unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
Right. I'm Carolyn Jones. I used to work in the lab, and some people who've been on the walks might know me.
Carolyn, I know you actually. I interviewed you last year for the oral history project. Lovely to see you. That's right. Out in the garden.
So it's just might be of interest to people that this is a Vivian's house. You can see that how well made they were. You turn it round. Quite big rooms, you know, so they did treat people very well in that way. This was built in 1890. So in fact, I think they do better houses then than they do today. But I will be helping out on the dig. I don't know how much I'll be able to do at 84 mine, but
well, you can get stuck in as much as you want, Carolyn.
We'll definitely look forward to seeing you there, Carolyn.
Yes.
Lovely. Well, if there's nobody else who has any questions, I'll just pause a second in case we've missed anyone. Okay, so we'll leave it there for this evening. But like I said, in the morning, I'll share this recording. Obviously, this session's been recorded, so I'll share it with all of you just in case you want to rewatch anything, and for anyone else who couldn't attend. But I will follow up with forms for you all to fill in. If we've scared you off, then please don't worry about returning it. But hopefully, we look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks' time, and really just getting stuck in. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this evening.
Thank you. It was very interesting indeed.
Oh, brilliant. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
See you soon, guys. Bye.
Bye.
I can see